Thank you, Andrew. That's right. Dr. Joel Conn joining us this Monday for our Ask the Vet segment. And we're going to be talking about foxtails today, which I find very interesting because it's something that a lot of pet owners probably aren't aware of the dangers of that during this time of year. But first, let's get to our special guest. Let's talk about this lovely girl.
Well, this is Midget. She's a 15-year-old spayed female. She's got a little bit of a sad story. Her owner died recently, and the person that took her on didn't want her. And she was actually brought to our clinic to be put to sleep. And, you know, she's perfectly healthy, very, very sweet kitty. So we decided to take her on as a project. So she's looking for a loving home. She's 15 years old. She's just had her teeth cleaned. She's had some blood work done. She's in really good health. Very, very sweet. A little bit talkative this morning. I think
she seems to be starting to settle into the studio this morning, getting used to the lights and all the action around here.
It's a lot to take in. It's not how she planned to spend her morning, but she's doing well.
Yeah, she's doing very well.
So she can be, if you're interested, contacted through our clinic, pismobeachvet.com. There's more information online.
Great. We'll go ahead and link that to our website as well. So if you would like to learn more about Midget, and you said she also has a litter mate that you guys...
She has a litter mate, which we think already has a home at this point, but
okay.
That is a possibility too.
Okay.
Yeah, they were both brought in to be put down.
All right. And now let's talk a little bit more. Let's get to this issue. We're heading into summertime. A lot of different plants are starting to sprout. One of the things that people should be concerned about are foxtails.
Foxtails are probably the most dangerous weed in California, and it's a California thing. So a lot of vets that go to other vet schools come here, and they've never had to deal with them before. Foxtails, basically, and I think we have some pictures coming up, are a grass weed. And what happens is during the dry months, they dry out and they're barbed. And so what happens is the little pieces will come off onto fur, onto your socks, you know, onto any part of the animal. And then they start to migrate. And they're very sharp, and because they're barbed like an arrowhead, they migrate in, but they won't come out. And so we find them in noses, eyes, ears, toes. They can end up, you know, if an animal chews on them, they can end up down in the lungs, just cause some horrendous issues. And unfortunately, unless you move out of California, it's something we have to deal with. So prevention's important. Here's a picture here of the dry plants. Typically, they start in about beginning of April is when they dry out enough to become a problem. We have a few other pictures coming up. Okay.
Yeah, I think we can start going through this. I'm sure everyone knows what, now that, especially now that you see those pictures, because those can be pretty pesky even for humans. You know, you take a walk and you find them, like you said, in your socks and in your shoes, and can't imagine how painful they could be.
You can see a close-up here. Those little tiny spiky hairs are what cause them to move forward. So that point goes in, and they just migrate. So the key with these guys is prevention. And there's lots of things you can do. The first thing, of course, is mowing your yard, keeping it short, mowing it while it's still green, preferably, to help prevent, you know, pets in the yard from getting exposure. When you go for hikes, keep your animal on leash. Be sure to check, you know, between their toes, check around their ears, their mouth when you come back from a hike. Even cats will pick these up too. With a very hairy dog, like a poodle or something like that, they just act like magnets. So one thing you can do is have your groomer do what's called a foxtail clip, where they actually cut the fur on the foot very fine and help to avoid. She's taken off. Help to avoid picking those up. If you believe your animal could have a foxtail, if it's suddenly shaking its head or tilting its head like that, or suddenly sneezing, that's the big thing we're seeing right now. All of a sudden your animal that doesn't have allergies start sneezing, get them in to see a vet. We actually have to sedate them. We look in with a scope. I've had animals that were sneezing a week earlier. They stopped sneezing, and here's an example of one right now. This is a dachshund named Kiki, very sweet little girl. She was here on vacation, and she came in. She'd been sneezing for 3 days. Actually, she had almost stopped sneezing by the time I saw her, and we thought, well, we better check. Sure enough, she's actually sedated right now. We have a little Novocaine in her nose, and that's what I pulled out. So she had this big chunk of foxtail in her nose. They can cause significant infections. They carry bacteria with them. So it's not just the foxtail, but other things they introduce. So fun times.
Yeah, gosh.
This time of
and
year.
I know it's, you know, because I love taking my dog up in the hills and hiking him around. So that's something that I had never really thought about. I think I was talking to you about it several weeks ago, and you had mentioned it, the dangers of those foxtails. So definitely something to be aware of for pet owners. Any other symptoms? I know you had mentioned the sneezing and stuff, but for instance, if it gets into their paws or fur? Anything
So what
to
you'll
look
most
for?
commonly see, so sneezing is a big one, shaking of the head is a big one too, and even if your dog's had a history of ear infections, don't look it off. Have your vet check it out, because sometimes even a dog that had an ear infection will also find a foxtail down in there.
Really?
So that's a common one. Oftentimes drooling, if they swallow them and they get stuck in the tonsils area of the mouth, or they have trouble eating, that's one of the things we check for.
Okay.
And then between the toes is a common sight. What you'll usually see is the animals licking like crazy.
Okay.
And that's not normal. And when you look, you'll usually see a red bump, sometimes even a little draining tract between the toes,
Okay.
which we then will probe, and oftentimes we'll find something.
Okay.
The problem with these is that you really have to look for them. They're not going to come out on their own. So, it's definitely, if you think there could be one, get it checked out soon, because the further it goes in, the lower our chances are of finding it.
Okay, very good. And so I think that we've covered most. We are just about out of time, and so again, very important information. And one more time, we just want to remind people that we are looking for a home for Midget and a very sweet girl. So again, thank you so much for joining us this morning on this Memorial Day, and thank you, Midget, for coming in. We hope she finds a very
She's
good
settling
home.
in now.
Yeah, she's looking pretty good. All right, we'll be right back.
Thank you.